What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? Jeff back here with more Project Zailas, bringing you a real quick video this time. We're going to be exchanging our factory toe bolts for some aftermarket toe bolts that will allow me to get a little bit of extra adjustment out of the toe angle in my rear, the rear wheels in the back of the Z here. Now, of course, the car does come equipped with toe bolts from the factory that do allow for a bit of adjustment in the toe in the rear, but it's not going to be enough adjustment for what I'm going to be running suspension wise here. With the wide body that I'm building currently, I need to run a little bit of extra negative camber, a little more than you typically would with the stock suspension setup, and with that I will also need to have a little greater adjustment with my toe, hence why I went ahead and got some toe bolts. So with my car, there's a couple of things that are going on already that I need to take into account. The things that I've already done to the rear end of the car that will kind of affect the installation of these new toe bolts. Things like the rear diffuser being here, my Tome exhaust, and the air suspension that I have going on right now. The car is on Airlift Performance air suspension currently. I also am running SPL rear camber arms as well, so I need to take all of that stuff into account as I go in and install these new toe bolts. The camber arms allow me to adjust my camber, which is when the wheels are, if this is the side of the car right here, negative camber is going to be where the top of the tire tilts into the fender, and positive camber is going to be where the top of the tire comes out like that. And then you have the toe, which again, if this is the side of the car, toe in is like that and toe out is like that. So the idea is that you want to run a really nice even setup between camber and toe to put as much tire patch on the ground as you can. That way you're getting a straight track with your car as you're driving down the road, and also it prevents excess tire wear, preventing your tires from wearing out unevenly. You want them to wear evenly so you get the longest tread life and also the safest ride. Now, of course, there's always going to be different varying factors for different people and different setups and different cars. Some people want a little bit more of an aggressive look, so they're going to dial in a little more negative camber. Other people are solely focused on safety, so they want as close to stock specifications with their suspension as possible. And I usually find, typically for myself, that I want to run something that's a little more aggressive than stock, but not so far out that it becomes ridiculous and unsafe to drive my car, which is why I'm going to be running basically the minimal amount of negative camber that I need to run in order to get a nice fitment with the new flares that I'm putting on my car, and still allow for the safest, straightest ride in my car, because I definitely don't want to be going through my tires too quickly. And number one, most importantly, is I want to be safe on the road, not only for my sake but for the sake of others driving around me or whatever on the road. I want to be very careful not to be driving a car that's potentially very dangerous. So taking all that into account as I'm going in with my build here. But anyway, let's get into the installation here. I'm going to show you first of all what you need, what the new bolts look like compared to the old bolts, and then the tools that I'll be using to do this. You may not have any of the issues that I may run into if your car is closer to stock, or you're running, stock exhaust and you don't have a diffuser like this that could potentially get in your way. This installation could potentially be a whole lot easier for you than it will be for me. But still, this is not a difficult thing to do at all. It's really not. If you're savvy at all with working on cars or tools, or even if you're not that savvy at all, this really shouldn't take you more than an hour or two. If it's the first time you've ever done anything suspension wise, it may take a little bit, but it's not a hard thing to do overall anyways. But I will explain how my level of modification may change the installation procedure for me. So here's pretty much everything that we're going to be using to do this installation. As I said, it's not a very difficult thing to do at all. It doesn't require very much, but also, as I said, depending on the level of modification that you have to the rear end of your Z, you may or may not need more than this, but this is what I need to do mine. First of all, we have our new toe bolts right here. Consists primarily of just the bolt itself, which is got one flat edge on one side, and then we have two washers like this, nice heavy duty washers, and they both have these slots that will accommodate the bolt going into the washer. And then we have, of course, a nut to fasten to the other side. Now this is designed this way so that it allows you to adjust the toe, as I will show you after we get it up there. It's not a typical looking bolt, it's a little bit different. And this is what's known as an eccentric bolt, which allows you to, when you turn it, it actually makes an adjustment. This washer here actually slides between two nubs that actually pull in or push out the control arm that allows you to add that toe in or toe out. You'll see when we get up there. This is the factory toe bolt. This is what came on the car from the factory, and it looks pretty similar. It's a little bit different. You can see that it's a lot more round. There's not that real flat edge. There's just a couple of grooves, one on the top and one on the bottom, to accommodate the factory washer that looks like this. Now you can see how that hole there is a lot more in the center of the washer as opposed to further out onto the edge, which it does allow for some adjustment, but not as much adjustment as this will. When this turns, a lot more of that washer is going to be applying pressure. Again, you will see what I'm talking about when it's up there, but a lot more of that washer is going to be applying pressure on those nubs, thus pushing the arm out more or pulling it in more, depending on what you're trying to do, the adjustment you're trying to make. It also comes with the factory nut there. It's not really that complicated at all. It's not a real big thing to install, but it's very, very important, especially if you want a safe suspension setup. Now it also, of course, comes with instructions and, most importantly, a template here, and this template is going to be very important for doing the major modification that you do have to make in order to get these installed. And depending on the brand that you buy of these, there's some different brands. SPL, I think, makes a toe bolt. SPC is a real popular one, and then probably the cheapest option that you can get is AC Delco, which is what I went with, because in the end these are just bolts. They're all made the same, they're all high quality. You're not really going to get too much of a quality difference wise, but what you will see a difference in is the template. With the other kits, SPL and SPC, they all come with this template, and the others are made out of a nice kind of a cardboard, kind of a hard type of material, whereas the AC Delco ones here, it's literally just a piece of paper. Like, they give you the template and you got to cut it out, and it's literally just a little thin piece of paper that is easily destroyed with a little bit of oil or whatever, or rips accidentally. So what I did immediately is I went ahead and backed it with some tape, two or three layers of tape there, just to thicken it up a little bit and give it some strength before I went ahead and cut that out with an X-Acto knife. Make sure you do that. If you get the AC Delco ones, you're not going to take a hit in quality, so that's going to be your cheapest route, but you are going to get this little cheap template. So make sure you're backing that up with some tape just to strengthen it up a little bit, and you'll be just fine. Okay, so as I said, it does come with the template. All these kits should come with the template. If you buy toe bolts and you don't get a template, it was supposed to have come with one, but even if you didn't, it's not that hard to figure out. You can probably download one online and get it to the proper size. It will fit perfectly up in the factory position, and then you will just have to bore out a little bit of the metal on the sides here. You will see that as well. And then it comes with some basic instructions. I guess they help. I didn't really need them, but they kind of just give you a brief rundown of what to do. They're kind of general instructions, so that may or may not help you. Now, as far as tools, first off, some safety equipment. Get some safety glasses and wear some gloves when you're doing this. You will have to be filing down some metal, and you do not want metal shards going into your eyes. So wear some safety goggles at the very minimum, or safety glasses I should say. And if you're right under the area that you're going to be doing the work in, put a mask on too, just a basic dust mask too, because you don't want that stuff falling down into your nose or into your mouth or anything. That's no good either. So just protect yourself. It's not a big investment at all. Just get yourself some safety equipment. It's going to go a long way. All right, I got a Sharpie marker here that's going to allow us to mark out as we put our template up into the mounting area where we're going to be doing our modification. You put this up there, and then we're just going to use this Sharpie marker to mark out these corners right here that are going to show us where the metal needs to be shaved after we remove the template. We'll remove this, and we'll see just those two little black areas that need to be shaved away. It's about 1/8 of an inch on either side that needs to be modified. Again, you will see what that looks like in just a moment. Now, as for tools here, ratchets and wrenches and things like that, I've got a hammer here, I've got my Dremel. We are going to be removing the factory bolts. Now, these are 17 on the nut, 17 millimeter, and then on this side it is a 18 millimeter. So a 17 and an 18 millimeter are what you're going to need for those. And then I think it's exactly the same on the new ones as well. So 17 and 18 primarily. I've got open end and ratchets, of course, just a nice little bevy of ratchets. I got a hammer here to help you hammer out the bolts after you get the factory nut off. Just use a hammer to just kind of gently hammer it out if it's giving you trouble. If you haven't ever taken it out, it's probably not going to want to come out very easily. So just get a hammer or something to help you hammer that out. And then probably the most used tool of the entire procedure is going to be my Dremel. This is just a standard Dremel. This isn't a super high bells and whistles Dremel. This is kind of a standard one. But I do have the flex shaft that allows me to kind of flex this around. This is a little bit of a thinner barrel that allows me to get this up in there and do a little more detailed work in there. It's optional, but it helps me tremendously with the level of modification that I have, especially with this diffuser and this exhaust. I lose a lot of room under there, so this is actually helping me tremendously. But if you don't have these things on your car, then you probably don't need this flexible shaft at all. You can probably just use this just fine. As for the bit, I'm using this, I believe this is the 114, it's either the 114 or the 115 metal cutting bit, and it's just perfect for this job. It fits right in the slot real nicely, and it cuts through the aluminum bracket real nice. Gets the shave done real quick, and as long as you're careful and you got a steady hand, that's all you're going to need to do your shaving. You may also want to double up with a round file. If you have a round file handy, that'll be nice for getting up in the slot and just kind of filing off any metal sharp edges or anything that you may get after you do your shaving. That might help you a bit as well. Also, if you find that you just need to expand the shave just a little bit more, it's nice to just be able to get a little file, a round file in there and just file it out, as opposed to having to get your tool back up in there and try to do it a little bit more and accidentally get in a little too much or whatever. I like the ability to have just a little manual round file and get in there and do it as much as I want. Okay, so that's basically all you're going to need for this. It's not a hard thing to do at all. Like I said, it should only take you about an hour, at the most, an hour or two. Maybe a little longer if it's the first time you've done anything, but that's what you need. So let's get under the car and I will show you what we're going to be adjusting. Alright, so under the car now, of course I jacked it up safely and made sure the car was very stable. Always make sure that your car isn't going to fall down on your head right when you get under there. You definitely don't want a crushed head. So we're now under here. This is the rear cross member right here. We have our spring bucket here on this is the passenger side. The bolt that we're going to be changing out is going to be this one right here. That's the bolt that's on the inside of the spring bucket. Okay, it's not this one back here. There's another one back here. That's for the camber arm. We're not changing that one out. It's going to be this one right here that we're going to be making the modification to. Okay, it's very important. Now, one thing to point out is that if you have a true type coilover on your car and you're no longer using the factory springs, then you do not need these toe bolts. What you want to do if you want toe adjustment is you want to get some toe adjustment arms, and that's going to completely replace this entire spring bucket right here. It's going to bolt in right here and then bolt right to the back of the wheel hub right here. It will replace this entire unit right here. But because I'm using air suspension that makes use of the factory spring bucket, my rear bags actually mount directly to these rear spring buckets. I do not have the option of running toe arms, so I have to run toe bolts. That's going to be my only option for getting increased toe adjustment in the rear, unfortunately. I wish I could run toe arms, but the bolts are going to have to suffice. As a side note, if you are going to go and get some toe adjustment arms, highly suggest either SPL or Voodoo 13. Those two companies are going to get you your absolute best, highest quality arms that you can buy on the market right now, in my opinion. So if you do have a true type coilover that has replaced this or nixed this spring bucket, go with one of those. You're going to get amazing results with that, both in build quality and adjustability. Can't go wrong. But like I said, because we do still have this, due to my air suspension, we're going to be just doing the toe bolts, and that's going to be right here. This nut right here will need to be removed. That's a 17 millimeter, and then the actual bolt head in the back is going to be your 18 millimeter. That's going to be the first thing you're going to need to do, is go ahead and remove that, because we need to access the hole right here that the bolt is traveling through. The spring bucket here will need to be dropped down so you can go ahead and do your filing work. This will be the hole that we're going to need to actually expand a little bit to increase the area of adjustment. Okay, so that's what we're going to go ahead and do first, is we'll go ahead and get rid of this bolt right here. Alright, got that out of there. Now we're still left with the washer here. the factory washer that's still pressed in there pretty good. That will also need to come out. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use my hammer to gently pound out this bolt right here, and then I should get a nice amount of travel right here with my spring bucket. As I'd mentioned, my air suspension makes use of the factory spring buckets. The bottom of the bag actually mounts directly through the bottom here, so I did need to go ahead and unscrew that and disconnect that right there, because we do need this whole assembly to travel down a little bit to allow us to drop this down and get access to the hole there. Now I'm going to mention real quick, I have not loosened the bolts up in the front here by the wheel hub because I don't want this thing just flying down and smacking me in the face, especially if you have the factory spring right there and you take this out. If you have this bolt right here loose, or maybe even if you don't have it loose, this thing is going to be under compression with that spring and it's going to want to pop on you. So don't be where I'm at right here. I've been under here so many times that I'm a little used to the movement of this thing, but for the most part, don't be sitting right under your spring bucket when you're removing these bolts here, because it could pop on you, especially if you have the factory spring still in place. I'm going to move out of the way just a little bit just to be safe. Alright, so the bolt has come undone there. So I've got a little bit of movement in the spring bucket at this point. I'm going to go ahead and continue to work that bolt out, just kind of unscrew it a little bit. It should start coming out for you. I'm using like a little metal, it used to be an awl, but it's real dull. I dulled it out in the front, and that's just helping me to put that in the slot there and kick that bolt out a little bit more. Alright, so we got the bolt out right here. And as that thing did come out, this thing did drop quite a bit. So, as I said, don't be sitting right under this thing or it's going to come down and smack you right in the head, potentially. Alright, so we got the factory one out. We don't need this anymore. We also removed the washer from this side, made sure to get that out of the way. So we're just going to gently pull this down to give us enough room to access this hole right here. That's the hole that we're looking for. You'll notice if you look at it real close, there's two metal nubs right here on the sides, and that's where your template is going to fit nicely right in the middle. Now those are the two nubs that are allowing for adjustment of your toe. As that eccentric washer turns in there, as you turn the bolt, thus turning the washer, it's going to rub up against those nubs and pull in or push out the arm here. It'll make sense when you see it in action. But now that we have access to the hole, we can go ahead and line up our template right on there. It should fit exactly in there if you've cut it out correctly. And then you're going to hold it on there or tape it on there, whatever you want to do to make sure it's in the right position. You're just going to use your Sharpie marker to go ahead and mark out the sides right in those areas where we're going to be expanding it. Now we need to shave off probably about 1/8 of an inch on either side, like I said before, and that's going to allow for a further amount of adjustment in and out with your toe angle. So let me grab my little template, I'll put it up there and show you what it looks like. Alright, so here's the part where having a rear diffuser on this thing is a major pain in the ass, because this is like what I was talking about. You may or may not have one of these on your car, but if you do, you lose about 1.5 feet worth of working space under here. It's just a major pain in the ass. So I kind of have to do a little bit of a torque with my neck to get up here and put this template up here. Anyway, I got my template. Okay, so I'm going to just put it right up in that little slot. It should slot perfectly right between those two little nubs. And I'm going to line up the top and the bottom lines, because we know that we don't want to adjust the top and the bottom lines. All we're looking to do is just adjust the sides, just the left and the right portions of the hole, just to allow a greater range of adjustment in and out. Okay, so I'm going to place that little template right up in there. Like I said, it should fit perfectly, as you can see there. And now there's a little bit of exposed metal. You can see right here about 1/8 of an inch on either side there. That's where we're going to go ahead and use our Sharpie marker and mark that off. And then after we have it marked, we're going to remove the template, leaving only the Sharpie marker. Then we're going to take our Dremel tool and Dremel that out. All right, so I'm going to hold that there, get my Sharpie marker and put that to use. Again, become a little contortionist here. And I'm holding that template real steady there so it doesn't move around on me. You don't want to cut out or shave out more than you absolutely have to. You want to make sure you're being fairly precise with this. You're actually modifying the car here, the body of the car, so be careful with this. Take your time with it. There's no need to rush this at all. I'm just carefully marking out the area designated in the template, as you will see. And like I said, if you don't have the template, if for some reason your kit didn't come with the template or whatever, it's not a huge deal. You can just assume that you need to take out about 1/8 of an inch on either side. Just make sure they're round, because the bolt needs to be able to roll into those positions effectively, like it would typically. Don't go crazy and just shave all the way out to the edge of the nubs, because then you're doing too much. Just about 1/8 of an inch on either side. Okay, so I've got both sides marked. I'm gonna go ahead and remove the template at this point, and that's going to leave only the Sharpie marker. Now let me pull the camera up here so you can see that. So there you can see I've removed the template and just the Sharpie marked areas are remaining. That's all you want to take out of the sides. That's what we're going to be shaving out right there, okay? So not a lot whatsoever, not going crazy with it, just taking out about 1/8 of an inch on either side, and that'll get it done. All right, we've now moved to the back of the area. Here's the rearmost hole here. This is the spring bucket here that goes up into here. We just previously marked the front part, and that's that right there. So we're now gonna go ahead and mark the back part. You do have to shave both the front and the back. Of course, the bolt goes all the way through and needs to be able to travel all the way on both sides, not just one side. So make sure you don't forget to do the back part as well. Same exact procedure. I'm gonna take my template here that I have and put it right up in that little slot right there, and make sure the top and the bottom lines are lined up. Just can take the Sharpie marker, do the same exact thing. A little bit easier to see when I'm this close right here. I don't quite have to be such a contortionist on the back side here, although it is a little hard on my neck still. Bear in mind, none of this is going to be this big of a deal if you have a lift. That'd be fantastic. But alas, no such luck for myself. Anyway, just using my Sharpie marker and marking away here on the sides, same exact thing. 1/8 of an inch on either side. Alright, so I got both sides marked there. Remove your template and make sure it looks pretty accurate. It looks pretty good. Perfect. Alright, so we now have both sides marked, front and back. We have our reference areas for how much we need to shave off. At this point, we can go ahead and go in with our Dremel tool and start dremeling that away. This is going to be really easy to do on this side. I've got lots of room to work with here to get my Dremel tool up in there and start doing my drilling. When I did the other side, it was a total pain in the ass because my exhaust line was in the way. Also, the drive line here, or the axle, was totally in the way as well. So it was a lot harder on that side than it will be on this side. So I don't know if that's going to be the same for you guys if you're running stock exhaust or a different exhaust system. But with the Tomei, it was a pain in the ass. So I'm just going to point that out. Good luck with that. I was able to get it after, I don't know, after about 10-15 minutes I was able to get it all drilled out, but felt like it was a lot harder than it should have been. But anyway, that's really all there is to it. Let's get to drilling this out on both sides. Again, make sure you don't forget to do one side and you do the other side. Make sure you get them both, because you will need to have them both done. And then we'll throw our new bolt in there, get it tightened up, and I'll show you how the adjustment works. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and get started with our dremeling here. I'm going to go ahead and take care of the rearmost facing hole first. Doesn't really matter which one you do first, just as long as you got a good sight line on it and you make sure that you can see your markings clearly. You don't want to overshoot your markings and you don't want to undershoot them either. So make sure you got a nice clear view of it before you go in. Now again, I'm using this flexible shaft extension on my Dremel tool. It definitely helps to get your tool up in there straight, and you know, especially for projects like this where you don't have a lot of room, it helps a little bit. So if you've got this, use that. If you don't have this, you could probably just use a like a round file or a drill bit if you have nothing else. A drill bit may be a little risky because it may want to move around on you a little bit, but this is the way to go for sure. If you got a Dremel, use one of these guys, pick one of these up. It's a worthy investment anyways. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and get started on this hole right here. I got a nice good clean shot at it, so it shouldn't be too long at all. This bit works quick, so just keep both hands on it if you can. Wear your safety goggles. You don't want any of these metal shards flying down into your eyes. So not quite finished yet, but I'm going to go up there and take a look, make sure we're on track. Everything looks good. We got just a little bit more to take out here on this side and a little bit more on the other side as well. But we're looking good so far. Let's keep on going. Alright, so we're looking pretty good on the one side here. We're just about perfectly shaved out as much as we want to do. I'm just going to use my little round file now. Just do a little detail work here. Just to kind of finish the job. Just want to make sure where you shave out it's nice and round and nice and uniform. With that nice shape. You want to make sure it doesn't kind of taper down into a little bit of a smaller rounding on the edges. Just make sure it's a nice oval with a nice flat spot on the top and the bottom so that the bolt has room to travel from one end to the other. And I'm also just taking the opportunity to clean up any little shards of metal, any little spiky areas that may prevent the bolt in the washer from sitting flush up against the bracket here. Make sure it's nice and clean. Alright, take one more look from the other side. And that is looking good. Looking real good. So at this point I can't see any more of my Sharpie marker where I marked it out. That's a good sign. That lets me know that I took out enough. So I'm just going to take my template one more time and put it right up there against that hole and take one more look to see if there's any more metal that we need to shave out there. It should fit the template perfectly at this point. Line that up so that it's square right there between the two nubs. And there is just a little bit more metal that I do need to take out on the left side here. Other than that, it's looking great. And I'm not even going to need to go back in there with my Dremel. I'm just going to be able to file that out with my round file. And then we'll be good for this side. Alright, and as you can see, as I got the template up there, it's perfectly shaped. It's got the perfect shape of the areas that we just shaved out right there. So that's exactly what you're going for. You want to make sure that you take out no more and no less than the template designates. So after having completed the first hole, you can see back here, here's the second hole that we have to do. You can see the difference in size between the two, from the one that's already been done and the one that has yet to be done. So like I said, about 1/8 of an inch extended on either side is just going to increase the total width of it by about 1/4 of an inch in total. Alright, so let's move to the back hole and do the exact same thing. Shave out about 1/8 inch on each side. Yeah, looking good so far. Alright, so we've now got both of the holes on this side bored out to the exact same size. So we got them extended by 1/8 of an inch on either side, so that when we put our bolt through there, it will have equal travel all the way through, as I will demonstrate. Test fit the bolt through, and as you move it from one side to the other, it has equal travel all the way through. Alright, I've gone ahead with my file and cleaned up the second one right here, so there's no sharp little spots that are going to bother the washer or anything like that. We are good to go ahead and reinstall the spring bucket with the new hardware, and then we'll start making our toe adjustment. Alright guys, so I've gone ahead and installed the new hardware. Now when you're installing this, you want to make sure that you of course get your spring bucket in the right position and push it in so that it's all the way flush up to the bracket. You don't want to leave any gapping or anything like that, so make sure it's all the way in there. You want a washer on each side, and the way I decided to do it is go ahead and put the fixed nut on or the cap end I should say, on the rearmost hole, and then the nut side is going to be toward the front of the car. That's just the way I decided to do it. I figured it'd be easier to, if I ever needed to take this off, to go ahead and get like a little ratchet or something up on this side to get that nut off, and then just, or hold the nut and then just get a ratchet on this side where I have a little bit more space here to go ahead and take that off if I ever needed to take it off again. So what you want to do is make sure you got a washer on each side. The washer should fit right onto the bolt. It should be the perfect size with that little slot inside the washer. So fit it on there and make sure it's flush to the bracket. Now these two nubs right here on the sides are what are going to create your toe adjustment. As you adjust this bolt right here, it's going to slide between those two nubs and pull your toe angle inward or outward as you adjust this. So you'd loosen up the nut in the back, make the adjustment that you need to make, and then tighten that nut back up again, and that's how you adjust your toe. Now you need to make sure when you're installing this bolt that you put your washers in between those two nubs. You want to make sure that this washer isn't sitting on top of one of these nubs, or else it's never going to sit flush. Make sure that when you install this, it's flush on both sides, in between the two nubs. Make sure your washers are in between the two nubs so that when you rotate it, it rotates inside those two nubs, thus creating that factor of adjustment. Alright, so that's pretty much all there is to it with this install. Like I said, it's not very difficult to do whatsoever. It's very basic, truth be told. It does take a little bit of time, I suppose. Not much more than about an hour, to be honest, but you know, it's not hard to do at all, and it really gives you a nice little bit of adjustment. So it's worth it if you're running air suspension like I am, or you don't have a true type coilover system that replaces the spring bucket. If you still have the spring buckets, or if you still need the spring buckets, then you will need to go ahead and get toe bolts. You cannot run toe adjusting arms that will replace the spring buckets unless you have true type coilovers, which will eliminate them, allow you to eliminate them. Alright, so that's it for this. If you need toe adjustment on your car and you still have the spring buckets, get toe bolts, and that's how you install them. Just make sure you take your time with it, be careful, take out only as much as you need to take out, and as soon as you're done here, take your car to an alignment shop and have them professionally align it for you. Don't trust yourself unless you've been doing this for a super long time, because really it's not worth it. Your safety and the safety of others is paramount. So go and get a proper alignment. That way your tires will last the longest, as long as they possibly can, and you'll be the safest that you can be. Alright guys, thanks so much for watching this video. I will catch you guys on the next one. Peace.